Hey, remember me? It's been a while since I've done any streaming, but I can explain I've been very busy with all sorts of different things. Work has been really busy with me. Um, I've been very busy with my family, and honestly, I've also been very busy going to different tournaments. Let me explain to you about this one tournament I just went to just a month ago. So I was participating in a Magic the Gathering tournament for Pioneer. I was playing Green White Angels, which I've been having lots of fun playing on Moto and also on in real life. I mean, like just at my local game store, I've been playing some Pioneer. I also been playing a lot of Modern too. Pretty soon I'll be going to my local game store to participate in a Modern tournament, and I'm super excited to play in that too. Um, So yeah, there's lots of different things been going on in my life. But I'm going to tell a story on how I got my first ever top eight in any kind of Magic tournament. Um, Honestly, most of the time when I go to these tournaments, most of the time go to like the top 20, maybe the top 25, or unfortunately, sometimes I've finished last place. Um, I was like very lucky to do so well in this tournament. Because let me tell you what, this was a hard tournament that I participated in, and this is my first ever top eight. So let's begin. So this tournament was featured in June, just a month ago. And I went down to another game store in central Pennsylvania. Um, and I went down there to participate in a tournament. There were 32 players in this tournament, and we played 5 rounds of sealed, or I'm sorry, 5 rounds of Magic. So I go up to my first opponent. It's actually a friend of mine from my local game store who works there. And he's playing Izzet Phoenix while I'm playing Angels. So our first game goes in his favor. I normally have a good matchup with Phoenix because they're focused on their graveyard, just putting the Phoenixes into the from the graveyard into the battlefield by casting like 3 or more spells a turn. And here I am just gaining a lot of life because I'm just popping out angels and using all sorts of cool cleric abilities and angel abilities just to get a lot of life. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't win the first game. Then the second game comes around. Then the second game comes around. The second game is pretty tight between the two of us until I notice something. My opponent plays a legendary enchantment. That's a blue enchantment that lets him, like anytime you draw cards, besides your first card this turn, you can put a counter on a creature you control equal to the number of cards you have drawn this turn. Both of us didn't know it was actually a legendary enchantment. So I had to call the judge. Judge came over, and here's the reason why we had to call the judge. He had 2 copies of the legendary enchantment out, and he didn't sacrifice the first enchantment or the second enchantment. And he was just including more counters onto his creatures. So we had to call the judge over, and he conceded the game due to the over amount of counters that were done illegally. But we were both given warnings during that match. So there was something we had to make sure we had to take control of. So we go to game three, and he starts off on a rocky start, while I fortunately do really good in the early game. I was able to put out some angels. I even I collected accompanied out some big angels, and I was able to overwhelm my opponent. So I took the match 2-1. Let's go to game two. I'm playing against another friend of mine, and I'll be honest with you. Seems like anytime I go to these tournaments, I'm always going to play against my one of my friends. And this person was playing a control deck. But before we even started our game, we got deck checked. Now, when this happens in any kind of like tournament, The judge just wants to make sure that you are using the correct cards in the deck. You're not substituting in any illegal cards. So we do so we do that. We were waiting around for an extra like 5, 6 minutes, and I made sure that I triple checked my deck to make sure that I had all the correct cards in my deck. And I did. The same with my opponent. So we were given an extension. So we go to the first game. And the first game was actually really good in my favor. I took the match and I'm up 1-0. Second game comes around. Unfortunately, um, I was not able to play a lot of things because my opponent kept countering stuff. He just overwhelmed the board, and I lost that game. Game three. In game three, this was a nail biter. I had a lot of stuff on the field, plus I had a lot of life. My opponent was trying to counter a lot of my things. Unfortunately, he didn't draw the correct source that he needed. He needed like a destroy all creatures spell, which he was playing, and he also had cards, I believe, like the a sorcery card that can blow everything, like exile all cards, and then you incubate. Can't think of the card right now, but it's okay. Fortunately for me, he did not draw it. So I took the match 2-1. Now we're going to round three. This is round 3 out of 5 rounds. For round three, I'm paired up against one of my other friends. And again, I swear, these tournaments love to just match me up with my friends. And this guy is playing this pretty interesting deck. It's called Niv to Light, which features a lot of the Niv Mizzet cards that can like it's a 5 color deck. It's kind of a tricky deck too. But my friend did pretty well with the deck. But the first game, thankfully, I had enough damage on board to kill him, and we moved on to the second game. And the second game, I was off to a nice fast start. Unfortunately, he was sputtering and not doing so well in the second game, and then I was able to take the second game because I had a lot of life, and he conceded the game. So here I am going into round four at 3-0, and I am just feeling very happy because normally by round three, my record is either 1-2 or 0-3 or maybe 2-1. I'm never 3-0, and this is just feeling great. Um, so we go to round four, and my friends tell me since I'm already 3-0, I don't have to win any more games or any more matches for the rest of the day. I can just draw with my opponents the next 2 rounds, and I automatically make it to the top 8. And I'm like, okay. Because honestly, if I would have played, there would have been a chance that either, yeah, sure, I can get a higher placement, or I can lose the next 2 matches and I may be out of contention for the top 8. So we go to round four. Both me and my opponent agreed to draw. So now I'm 3-0-1. We go to round five, the final round. I already know I have enough points to make it in. So both me and my opponent, we agreed to draw. So we're now 3-0-2. And now we go to final standings. During the final standings, I'm in top 8. I'm in 5th place because one of the people who was trying to get into the top 8 she won. She got 12 points. And four of us all had 11 points. But due to our standings in like our wins and loss column, I was in the fifth position. And then there's three other people, I think like three other people that had 10 points. So it's really neat. Like we got our photos taken for the top 8 event, which is pretty cool. And now we are now going into top 8. Now here's something that's pretty interesting about like any kind of top 8, at least at this store, or maybe just in general. There's no time limit, which I was very surprised because normally all rounds of Magic are 60 minutes. And I was just thinking, oh, 60 minutes, here we go. I'll try my best. Let me tell you, I almost played up against a mirror match, but it was not Angels. It was the Aurelia combo that likes to explore and gain you a lot of life. And then as soon as Aurelia hits 20 power, boom, the whole board goes boom. And I knew this. Now I knew this because I played against this guy in tournaments before, and he's a pretty nice person. So I'm playing my Angels deck, and he's playing Aurelia. He did go boom on the first game, but thankfully I was able to do really well against him. Even though he went boom and destroyed all things on the field except for Aurelia, I was still able to win because I had more life than him. And he decided to concede the game. So I'm up 1 game to nothing. Game 2. So I sideboard in some cards against the Aurelia combo. And one card I did bring in was Solemnity. And what this card does, counters can't be placed on creatures. Aurelia needs counters on herself to get bigger. That way she can go boom and blow everything up except for her. If you do this explore thing and no counters, there's like an infinite loop. And you're always going to be either drawing cards or putting cards into your graveyard. There's nothing you can do. Um, it just ends up in a draw. So that'll automatically go to game 3. Um, Unfortunately, my plan fizzled because my opponent played a destroyed enchantment spell and was able to roll over me with Aurelia, and I lost that game. So now we're going to game 3. We're both tied up at 1. Unfortunately for me, my good luck runs out. I kept a hand of cards which I thought might be good. I don't draw another land until maybe turn 7, and I'm already far behind, so I have to concede the game. And that guy who won against me actually ended up being in the top 2. So he and another person who was a friend of mine both won the tournament because this was a 2-slot tournament, and the top 2 players were able to move on to Washington, D.C. for the next big tournament. So it was pretty cool. I mean, the guy went on to the next round to win 2-0 against his opponent who was playing Rakdos Vampires, and he wins, gets second place with that. The other guy was playing Nixos Ramp, which is like this really powerful green deck, and he got first place due to his standings. But the top 2 make it to the next big tournament in Washington, D.C. So I'm okay with how I placed. Out of 32 players, I ended up finishing in 7th place. Thanks to my standings before, I finished 7th, which I have never, ever finished this high on a game, on any kind of Magic tournament. So I was very happy I finished this well. And there you have it. That's my story on how I got in the first ever top 8 in a Magic the Gathering tournament. Hopefully, I can do this again in a couple weeks when I go to my local game store for a modern tournament, and maybe my luck will come back. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to leave me a follow here on Twitch, where I post most of my streams on Twitch, and don't forget to subscribe to me on YouTube. Thanks again. Bye bye.